I'm Nat Wilson with Aviation Net Zero, and I'm here with Richard Nanton. And Richard, you've had a look at the conference here, Sustainable Skies World Summit. What do you take away from the conference? Is there one thing that stands out to you so far?
I think the biggest thing that stands out for me is the development. And when you look around here, the amount of people that have turned up today with the innovative processes that are coming along. The electric aircraft is probably the biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
That it's up and running, certified and flying. As we move forward within the industry, there's certainly a lot of innovation coming through. It's trying to make that more effective now.
Do you think that the electric aircraft we see behind us, which is a general aviation aircraft, how much do you think that technology can translate through to commercial aircraft in the field that you operate in?
Well, I think if you look at it, obviously the biggest challenge it faces is probably the battery. The battery is substantially a substantial piece of the equipment. It's relatively heavy. As a result of that, just trying to power this size of aircraft, trying to extend that to a large aircraft, it's just going to make it probably unwieldy. If we then look at the hybrid solutions that we've also seen from Zero Avia, that's probably more the key area that you'll see developments in the commercial enterprise. Having that hybrid capability of hydrogen mixing with the electrics to be able to make sure the weight's not so substantial you can't fly, but also achieving what we want to achieve with the zero emission capability.
And you had a chat with Zero Avia. What were your thoughts about the technology that they're bringing to market?
I think it's fantastic. It's another innovative piece in the puzzle to be able to push the boundaries of what it is we do. They're looking to produce that for 2025. Again, when we started talking about this back in 2015, a lot of this stuff was so far down the line we never thought about it. Seeing a lot of it come to fruition, and even the certification of aircraft now, does prove that all of these innovations can be taken into account and can be brought about. The biggest challenge, I think, will now be the funding.
Absolutely. I think it's quite pertinent to be talking about the funding. And what kind of challenges do you see around funding for this?
The biggest challenges for the funding is how do you produce the business case to be able to show everybody how the money will be able to be effective? Because everybody wants a return on investment. How do we get that message across that the funding now works for the future? Where we sit today, we probably don't have the regulatory infrastructure to be able to make that case. I think the cases will come about mid-2030s towards 2040, when I'm pretty certain when we see the work the government are doing on regulation, taxation, the business case starts to stack up then. Until that becomes clear and apparent, the working of any business case at the moment becomes very, very difficult. And it now becomes a matter of trying to project the future rather than just saying, okay, fine, there's a business case to be able to be made based on pure facts.
Related to that, how important do you see the legitimate and measurable auditing of carbon credits, carbon use?
If you're on a journey and making an investment, you want to be able to tell people about it. But you want to be able to tell people with the verifiable facts behind you. As a result of that, having a truly substantiated and developed carbon capability and carbon accounting allows you to be able to do that without the risk of what we call greenwashing.
Yeah, we've seen a number of the airlines being accused of greenwashing, and in many ways it's problematic if the airlines aren't able to speak authoritatively on how much carbon they're saving. Then it's difficult for them to offset their investment in being more sustainable against marketing and so on. So it would seem to be vital that they're able to talk with confidence about how much carbon they've saved.
You're 100% correct, because if you don't understand that true carbon footprint, you then have a real challenge. Up to now, organizations who operate aircraft, so airlines, have been very much focused on scopes 1 and scopes 2. Those have been part of emission trading schemes and fundamental to the operation at the moment in regulatory sense. What we're seeing now is a lot of scope 3 stuff being promoted by the governments, so governments around the world, not just here in the UK but everywhere else, and the EU are probably driving a lot of this as well. As a result of that, if you don't understand the scope 3 piece effectively, which is probably where most of the carbon emissions lie, and you don't have that truly verified and don't have a mechanism to be able to verify that, you run into real challenges, coming back to the greenwashing piece, about being able to put that out as part and parcel of your marketing plan. As a result of that, it's vital that you actually have the capability of being able to say, I know where I sit on my accounting piece for the carbon.
Do you think there's much more work to be done then in Scope 3 emissions specific to the airline industry?
I believe there's a lot of work because the industry is primarily concentrated on Scope 1. The Scope 1 was really around the emissions from fuel. Obviously, a huge amount of an airline or an aircraft operator's emissions come from that, but the Scope 3 is a hidden bit, and that bit with the whole value chain piece is where 80% of the actual emissions sit. And therefore, if you're only dealing with the 10 to 15% of the emissions in the operational area, what you need now is to be able to look at that hidden area and be able to highlight that and bring that along. And that's not something that's really been developed within the aviation industry so far.
You've been in this game a while. You mentioned, going back 10 years. Are you positive? Do you feel positive about the progress that we see here in 2024?
Oh yeah, just looking around the hall, obviously to even have had this 10 years ago would have probably melted into one of the other big air shows like Farnborough in a month's time. I think to be able to do this by itself here at Farnborough, which is obviously a place where aviation has been bred into the country and it's been part and parcel of development, and to see it here is certainly something that's showing that we are on a well-developed path. Is there more to do? Of course there is. There's always more to do with anything that involves aviation, particularly when innovation sits at the heart of it, and the only way we can make these changes is through innovation. So if we're to be able to innovate, fund that innovation, and be able to meet the requirements for 2050, there's still quite a substantial amount of work to do, particularly around both education and also an understanding of what it is we're trying to achieve.
Do you get a sense that outside of the aviation bubble, there's a lack of understanding around what work is being done within aviation specific to sustainability? Do you get a sense that people the general public doesn't really understand all of the effort that's being put in here?
Most definitely, and I think the biggest thing is it's a high-profile industry. So therefore, everybody looks at it as an opportunity to be able to say that's an industry that pollutes and therefore should be a target. There's a huge amount of innovation that's gone in, a huge amount of funding that's gone into this industry, and that, as part and parcel of this, is something that's not showcased enough. The event here probably isn't going to make the news, and it's probably not going to make the actual headlines anywhere. And therefore, if it was to be shown how this interlinks with the operation of an airport not too far away from here, etc., you could then demonstrate quite clearly that the industry is doing a lot to be able to make those changes. But given the size and scale of this particular challenge, it will take time, and people just have to be patient.
We've got some pretty big names here today. We've got the CEO of British Airways, we've got the CEO of Virgin, Chief Sustainability Officer for Boeing and for Airbus. Is there anybody in particular that you're looking forward to hearing speak today?
I think it would be great to hear from all of them for all different reasons, because just going back to your previous question, seeing two CEOs here to be able to give that message that they've bought into this particular journey is a substantial change from where we were. To hear the specialists come out from people like Embraer, etc., they will be able to give us specialization that we haven't seen in the industry previously, and also show that it's around a meaningful change. What we're trying to do here is not change the world and stop people from traveling. Is to try and ensure that whilst we travel and have the expansion plans that we do, and the businesses, and generate the revenue that we've got, we want to do that with the reduction of the carbon emissions to be able to make sure the challenge around the environmental challenge is also resolved. And that meaningful change can only come from individuals like those people that you've just mentioned, because they're the thought leaders and have the capability to influence the change in the industry. They all sit on a lot of bodies that will be quite influential for quite a few years now.
So, in your role as a pilot, as a commercial pilot, are you seeing any of the initiatives that we are looking at? You know, you work in the cutting edge of aviation. Any of the carbon-based initiatives, are you seeing that filter through in your role as a commercial pilot?
Oh, most definitely. Back in 2015, where we started to run all of these challenges, fuel and saving of fuel has always been one of the key areas for every operator. It's one of the biggest spend areas because of the amount it's consumed. So therefore, cutting down on the amount that's spent, or cutting down the amount that's used, will reduce the actual outgoings for an organization. As a result of that, we've been heavily involved in different innovative techniques, operational areas, and also looking now to use artificial intelligence to be able to move a lot of these operational changes that we've made to ensure efficiency in the commercial area, try and ensure that we've got a drive where we now pick up on new tools, new capability, use things, as I say, like artificial intelligence to reduce things like contrails, to be able to produce 4D flying. So now we have a truly efficient system rather than just sitting where we were with operational techniques that change fuel flows, etc. So yeah, there's a lot coming into the market now and a lot of tools that are coming in that will be able to help us as pilots be able to make that more effective.
Richard, thanks so much for your time today.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.